Welcome to the Tenant Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here in Denver, Colorado with my good friend and partner, Wes Brown in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Todd, it's good to see you. Oh my God. You know what day it is? It's Super Bowl Sunday. The three of us are such diehard Super Bowl Sunday fans that we're doing a podcast. That's awesome. So we'll catch you at halftime and then we'll go from there, but we'll check in. But it's Super Bowl Sunday. God, it's like, I feel fresh. It feels like a new year.
Well, it kind of does mark the new year for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. And for those who give a shit about me, I got my wife's car back. So now we have a car, and my friend Dan gave me his until I get my truck fixed. So we're good to go, man. So things are good. Got about 4 inches of snow. It's a beautiful day.
Right on, man. Well, it's been a busy week. I got out and saw some art Friday evening. I went to 4 different galleries, and just so folks that are in Denver know, there's art to be seen. And even though they're not doing big openings, go check out your local galleries. I got to see 4 different shows this weekend. I went to ILA Gallery down on Calumet, and that show is called The Black Vanguard, and they had some phenomenal artists down there. 22-year-old kid, Sasha the Kid, he calls himself, had some wonderful abstract stuff in there. Detour, really wonderful artist. Rochelle Johnson had some stuff in there. It's a great show. And then I hopped over to Space Gallery, and they have 3 different artists that have solo shows going in there right now. Do yourself a favor, check that show out, because all 3 of those artists in there were phenomenal. Hit Bit Factory on the way back to my car, and that No Show, which will be done by the time this airs, that's just a phenomenal show. And I got to actually see some of the artists that we've interviewed on the program, Lee Labier, Dan Drossman, W. Max Thompson, Ira Sherman's work, who we just interviewed, is in there currently. A.L. Lomas, she had some of her work in there, and it was great to catch up with her. She's got a solo show coming up at Bit Factory here in a couple months. And then finished off the evening at Next Gallery down on Colfax in the 40 West Arts District, and got to see some phenomenal work by artists by the name of Josh Davey. So if you're in the 40 West Arts District, go to Next Gallery and check that out. Wes and I have some really exciting news this week. New magazine that highlights art and fashion is now a media sponsor of the Tenant Podcast. And we would like to extend our gratitude and thanks to Richard Kalisher and New Magazine for this opportunity and believing in what we are doing with this podcast. So thank you, Richard, and New. Thank you very much. You can follow New on Instagram, where there is a complimentary link to the current issue. And you'll see a wonderful ad that Wes's wife, Tonette, designed for us. We're like page 3 in that issue, which was really, really nice of them to put us up front there. You can find this on the profiles of both the Denver and the national edition. The New Denver Instagram is @new_Denver_magazine. And the national issue of New on Instagram is @new_magazine. Check it out. There's some great articles in there. Our friend Lee Labier wrote an article of her experience of doing an artist residency down in Marfa, Texas. And that sounded really interesting. And it was great to talk with her about that. What a great experience. And
hey, how do you spell new? Because it's not N-E-W.
N-U-E. Thank you for reminding me, because otherwise people would be like, how do I find this? So yeah, N-U-E magazine. All right. That was a lot.
It was.
Our
listeners was like, all right, move on with the guest, because that's why we're here.
I need a nap. Do you think we can get her to come back here in a couple hours?
Sure.
I'm going to lay on the couch and watch Tom Brady. No, I don't care. I just don't care. Our guest this week is Brooke VanDevelder. Brooke is a freelance illustrator and artist based here in Denver, Colorado. Her work is absolutely stunning and highly conceptual. I just love it. Brooke has done work for major publications such as Scientific American, illustrations for books, album covers, and posters. And her website is vandevelder.com. That's VANDEVELDER.com. Woo! That was a mouthful.
Take a breath, Todd. You did great.
Anyway, welcome to the program, Brooke. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Great.
Good. Are you tired yet? Because I'm tired.
I know. I feel like we already did the whole podcast. Let's wrap it up.
Bam. Take that one, Todd.
No, it was great.
That's awesome.
We could just let you take it over.
There you go.
We should do that sometime, Wes. We could just let an artist take over the podcast.
You want to hear something really funny? That would be horrifying. I thought
What?
about Barb and Tonette taking it over one time, but oh my God.
I offered that up. So that Barb and Tonette are our wives, but Barb has no desire to.
No? Yeah, I don't think
None.
Tonette would want to either, but
Zero.
I'd just be scared, like, to give up that control. We might not get it back.
You could do it as like an April Fool's podcast episode
Oh, yeah.
where they just started out and then.
There we go. That's a good way to do it.
We'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
Maybe
Something to
we'll
think
bring
of.
you in, Brooke, to help convince them to do that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm excited. I've looked at your website and your Instagram page, and I love your work. It's just really interesting and really cool. And man, it's I'm just looking at it. The images or the illustration just speaks volumes. So you're really good at what you do. I love it.
Wow, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
How long have you been a full-time freelance illustrator?
I mean, trying to be full-time freelance illustrator for 9 years, since school. But I'd say like more full-time. It's like it starts to build every year on itself. So it's been very gradual. I don't know if I can pinpoint an exact time where I felt like I could I still don't think I do. It's like I have some years where it's going pretty well and I'm making enough, and then others not so much. But yeah, I've been creating for a while.
Have you always had an interest in art?
Yeah. It's funny. For a while, I thought I was in theater in high school and I thought I wanted to pursue that. I think it was because I couldn't get into an art class. It was like already full. And so I kind of like went into another dimension of art and kind of lost myself in that for a while. But I think I'm definitely more of a loner in the sense that I'd prefer to do all of my creativity and, without anyone watching me and being able to just sit quietly in a room and like the magic happens there. And then I can like show it how I want it to look. So
More introverted?
Definitely. I'm an only child and my parents were both gone quite a bit. My mom worked as a flight attendant, so she would be home for 3 days, gone for 4. My dad was working 2 jobs at the time. So it was a very quiet household for sure. So it was a lot of hours just sitting in my room and just kind of creating. And I definitely fell into drawing very early on and lost a lot of nights, like just staying up late and drawing in sketchbooks. And I look fondly on it for sure. It was nice. It was stressful in some ways, but for the most part, just having so much time to create, I don't regret it.
How was it stressful?
I think our house was pretty tense growing up, I think. So I think just picking up on those vibrations and then also finding an escape from that. So that was kind of my way of like that cathartic release of my own emotions, like in reaction to how the household felt a lot of the time. So definitely became like my little sanctuary for sure. And then from there, it's like I just can't live without it. It's like you kind of get distracted from artwork for a while and like pursue other things, but eventually I just kind of come back to that because that's my safe space, I think, from my formative years. So
Gotcha. What was the catalyst for you to start drawing? Did you just decide one day, hey, were you always interested in it, or did you just pick up some materials, some pencils and paper and just start drawing?
It's funny. I think my mom always tells this story to people because she's so proud that I guess I won some kind of big exhibition show in like kindergarten or something, like won first place. So she says like I always had this like, inclination for art. You look at the piece, it's like it's a kindergarten drew it. So it's not that big of a deal. But I want to say, yeah, I always remember looking at like visual artwork on the internet all the time and just being exposed to that and like looking at that more and more and more. It's like I really wanted to emulate styles and drawing. And it also seemed most accessible to me over music and other things. Like all I needed was a piece of paper and a pencil. So I didn't have to like seek anything else out. I could just quietly kind of pursue this thing without even anyone knowing about it. And I think that was part of it because I was very introverted. So it's like I didn't want to ask my parents for like singing lessons or like a guitar. And it's like all I had to do is just, I don't know, start it on my own basically.
Yeah. When you were in your exploratory phase and trying different styles, was there any illustrators that you kind of follow closely or anybody that was really an inspiration for you?
I guess later on is when I started really seeking out specific illustrators or artists. For the longest time, I thought I was going to go to school for graphic design. And then I thought I wanted to do 3D animation. And anyway, so I finally fell into illustration. I definitely am obsessed with dark artists and horror. I'm a huge horror fanatic. And I remember watching them when I was a young kid and just being in awe of like how people create the prosthetics and things like that. So mostly dark artists. And then it started to, I guess more recently, really been loving Edward Kinsella, Daniel Danger, Victor Nye, Phil Hale, Rich Kelly. So it's a little all over the place, I guess, but I definitely am more interested in like, cerebral artwork and also on the darker side of that, of the psychology of existence and things like that. So
I look at a lot of your stuff and you have a very distinct style from what I can tell. Now I'm just dabbling in the very, obviously probably in the shallow of it. And that takes time to develop a specific look. And then there are people there, and my wife is a graphic designer, and she's really good at kind of mimicking styles. Like when she worked at the hospital, she knew what the CEO liked. And so she would create specifically for him. And then the other designers definitely had their own kind of style. So she was kind of a chameleon that could design in lots of different styles where, and I'm not taking anything away from the other ones because they had a very specific look and very consistent. So, people liked their stuff. They went with them, so it worked. It was a pretty good marriage of designers. So, I know that as an illustrator, a lot of people can mimic or whatever, but I love the fact that yours is very consistent and it's a very distinct style. And I imagine that takes time to figure that out, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. As far as your wife being a chameleon and adapting to other people's styles, I feel like that process, a large part of it was pretty much trying to emulate other people's styles and either falling short or falling into a totally new rabbit hole on my own. But like you said, I don't think there's a shortcut to making a style. It's like a series of failures and successes. And eventually you just kind of curate for yourself what you liked about maybe that happy accident. And you're like, well, I want to keep creating that. So you slowly start to mold from a lot of different artists down, like funneling down into more your style. But I still, when I look at my stuff, I still feel like a hack half the time because I still see those influences, like the layers of history for myself, where I'm like, well, that's from this artist and that's from that artist. And I think maybe from the outside, other people are seeing it, at face value of here's the end result. And it looks like a unique style, which is fantastic. But in my own mind, I just think of the history of me trying to copy things. And it eventually kind of created its own thing. So
right. And I think I think most people, like I would 90% of the people, even highly successful people, feel like at times like somebody's going to discover that, let's say Julia Roberts is a perfect example. One day I'm going to show up and they're going to realize I can't act. And that was an actual quote from her. And, here's a famous A-lister actress, and, she feels like, it's like if they find out the secret, then my cover will be blown, kind of thing. And so, and not saying that you're feeling the same way, but you're seeing the inspirations from, the other people that you respect and you're emulating, that you could, to use I guess your term, feel like a hack. Your stuff is, I don't think, and I'm not that I study illustration or anything, but your stuff is very unique and I like it.
Well, thank you. But I know people people can't tell me enough that like, it really does look like you have a style and a mood, and it looks like a Brooke VanDevelder drawing. I'm like, I don't know how people are seeing this, but I'm so happy. So I'll just keep on forging on. But yeah.
It seems like it's pretty fortuitous that you changed your focus from graphic design to illustration. Was that hard for you to make that conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm not going to do graphic design, I just want to be an illustrator?
Yeah, so that was my initial thought leaving high school was, well, graphic design is still visual design. It's creative and it's still along the same vein, but to me it was a more practical application of that. And I thought I would probably make, a consistent income by doing that. I didn't even make it to my first class in graphic design because, they force you through gen ed classes. And by the time I even got to that point, I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do graphic design. It seemed practical, but I was like, I want to spend my money. If I'm going to spend my money on like a private art school, doing it for something that I actually want to learn and draw and master, I guess. But then of course it was like the next step down to me was, well, I want to do game art or 3D animation. So I switched to RemCAD for their degree in 3D animation. And I made it through like one class. And I realized that I really hate drawing the same thing over and over and over again. It was a 2D animation class, prep you for 3D. And I realized a lot of it was working in these programs where you're creating, 3D molds of things, just like weird shapes and then painting it. And for me, it was like, there was a disconnect where I wanted to physically be sitting down and drawing things for my own brain and not part of like a larger picture. The joy was totally gone for me taking those classes. Like this doesn't even equate to art to me. I mean, it's beautiful. The finished product is beautiful, but it seems like the process of doing 3D animation for me it just didn't compute. And so that's when I eventually fell into illustration from other classmates, going to these other classes, and they describe like, oh, we're doing figure drawing today. And I'm like, why am I not in figure drawing class? Like, what are they majoring in? Because that's what I want to be doing. And so it took me a while to figure out illustration was the way to go.
And so essentially circled back to your first love when you started doing art and doing your drawings and your illustration is like, I don't know, in my estimation, the way I look at it, it's really fine art. I mean, when I first discovered your work, I was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal stuff. The style of it, and it's just unique. Like I hadn't seen that kind of thing from anybody else. So I guess in that aspect, you are very successful, even though you might see your influences in your own art. I for sure look at it and go, wow, just intrigued by it. And like I said, unique. I want to back up. You started out doing your formal art education at Colorado State University. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's where I was going to study graphic design, or intending to. And I was not impressed with their art department. It just seemed like you could tell where the money is getting funneled to, which is, for any university, probably sports, but it was like, they really didn't they put the art building at the far edge of campus. It seemed like all of the facilities in the building were just worn out, old. They haven't updated it. On top of that, it seemed like a lot of my instructors were just they were nice people and I'm good at what they did, but like I couldn't find a connection with them that I really I wasn't impressed by their work. At least for me, I couldn't find one person style that really resonated with me. And so I guess with all that collectively, I just decided to go for REMCAD, or, a more privatized, specifically art school, because if I'm going to spend all this money, it might as well be for something that I'm surrounded by like-minded people, even exposed to even more aspiring artists and creators that are maybe a little more serious than like what seems to be kind of a side note for a Colorado State University. So,
what was your reason for initially going to CSU?
It was nearby, and I didn't really want to leave the state yet. I think it seemed the most accessible. And I want to say a lot of my peers were talking about going to CSU as well. And I knew one of my family members went there for graphic design as well. So I was just like, oh, it seems familiar. It seems like the easy next step. And I honestly didn't even think about it. I think I honestly just applied there and was like, I'm just going to go to Colorado State University. And looking back, just the way that I went to Cherry Creek High School, and, they have a really high graduation rate, and even higher, I think, rate of, seniors going to college. I remember like the principal even saying when we graduated, like 90% of our class, which is a large graduating class. I think it was like 500 or no, I think it's 1,500. Anyway, about 90% of them were going to college. So it's like, you didn't even question it. Like, you don't take a gap year, you don't stop, you just keep forging on. And looking back, it's like, why didn't I even stop to consider what I really wanted to do or not do? It was just funneled into the next thing.
Well, I think that happens a lot with kids in high school. If you're not, one of those kids that get recognized all the time or whatever, and maybe you were, but I think a lot of kids kind of get lost in the shuffle of things, and they're not really, and there's so many kids that there's not a counselor that's really guiding them through the whole process. I think I was one of those kids. And so I can relate to that story. I think it's interesting that you went there, and even though you didn't have like the experience you wanted to, you still decided you were going to pursue art and decided to go to REMCAD. Did you come away from your experience at CSU? Was there some good things that you came away with going to CSU?
Yeah, I mean, it was still a really good school. I ended up taking some awesome French classes and meeting some good people. I can't say that I didn't really like Fort Collins a whole lot. I was the kid that would drive home every weekend because it was either you decide to go to like some loud party or a bar or whatever, or you're stuck in the dorms. Like, it didn't seem like there was a whole lot, it's a college town. There's not a whole lot in between. And for me, I just kind of didn't want to, I don't know. I missed Denver, and I missed feeling like it was a little bit bigger of a city, compared to a college town. But no, I mean, CSU is gorgeous. There were really good classes that I took, gen ed classes, and there's no regret to it. I ended up not losing any years of schooling because I made sure all my credits transferred. So it was a pretty seamless transition into the next thing.
Well, and that's the one nice thing about going to a public school, public university is, it's usually a little cheaper than, I'm sure the tuition between REMCAD and CSU is a little different. My wife went to REMCAD actually, so she's a graduate of your school, but that's a good way to let me get out some gen ed stuff, and then let me get, I'll save the higher tuition for the art classes, because you all have to have, a certain amount of gen ed classes. So that, I mean, even though it was accidental, that's a really good way to do it.
You're so right. Yeah, it was a very happy accident looking back. And honestly, I remember my dad clearly telling me, like, just go to Metro. The first 2 years, it's going to be the same everywhere. And I was like, I want the experience of going to college, like going out of the house. And I just was hell bent on that. He just couldn't convince me otherwise. And anyway, but yeah, it worked out for sure. And by the time I got to REMCAD, it was just like this amazing thing where all of my peers were stuck going to gen ed classes, and all I had all day long was just like art, and just like completely submerge myself in that, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like it was a really great experience.
Yeah, it was, it was nice to feel like the entire campus itself all has the same, this creative energy. So it was like this weird little pocket of, just everyone's kind of on the same wavelength of some form of creativity, as opposed to going to CSU where it's like just a lot more distraction and other things happening, which is wonderful. But for me, I guess I wanted a more intimate setting.
Let me ask you this. Did you feel at the time that you went there, like they set you up for success as far as the business end of being an artist?
No. I hate to say that. I really loved the school, but it was lacking in that part. I'm currently advising or on the advisory board with them right now. So it's nice to be kind of in the background and helping them tailor their programs a little bit, just being a sounding board as an alumna from REMCAD. But no, they had, I think it was 2 classes that were business specific. I will say one was nice. It was specifically setting you up. Like they're like, you have to finish, you have to have a business card by the time you leave. You have to have a website, all of these things, tick the boxes. So you learned a little bit, but it seemed pretty glossed over. It was a lot of things to accomplish in a very short period of time, to the point where people were like in tears of frustration. And that's not to say the instructor was bad. It was just, I think they needed to expand that a little more. And there was hardly any talk of like the application of your illustration, like where you want to go with it. Choosing a, because within illustration, there's like so many different subcategories, book publishing or editorial and so on and so forth. So I didn't feel like there was a lot of like coaching you into like, okay, let's get you reaching out to art directors, let's get you like sending your work to people, basically. So I don't know. It's tough because on the one hand, it would have been great to do that, but I look at my portfolio and it looks like a student portfolio. It probably would have just equated to them saying, please reach back in, a couple of years from now.
So most of what you've done to reach this place in your professional career, that's all been kind of just trial and error?
Yeah, it's like 90% panic and anxiety, and then 10% like sheer, just like forcing myself into these like tiny moments of bravery where I'm like, all right, I'm just going to send off all of my stuff. Here's my distribution list of contacts, and dedicated, okay, I'm going to do this thing. But yeah, it was all after the fact. And honestly, like way after the fact, I think I waited way too long, but in my mind, I was like, my work isn't good enough. I have to keep carving out this style and like eroding down all of the worst pieces that I have and making this polished portfolio before I send anything off. And that took time. And I'm not saying it was the right or wrong way, but for me, it's like, I felt like I needed a lot more space on my own after school to figure out what I wanted to say, and developing that style and feeling really secure in myself as an artist before reaching out for professional work.
I think that's common though. In lots of different professions, a lot of people feel they need more education, before they go after the professional, career, whatever. Other people feel like they have to work their way up, pay their dues. And a lot of times you do, and there's this fear of jumping. I've definitely experienced the same thing. So it's not something special. It's definitely, I think a lot of people feel that way. So I totally get that.
Yeah, that is a perfect way of saying it. Definitely the fear of jumping, for sure.
When you left school, what did you do immediately after you graduated REMCAD?
So I was interning at a company during school, and so I ended up going back to that company full time. I was like, listen, I have a lot of student loan debt, and I was like, I want to get a salaried job, and they were totally fine. They were like, you were great interning. We have extra space. We're growing as a startup. So anyway, I started doing retouching and photography with this company that I was kind of dabbling in the, interim of college. And so I just pretty much I want to say it was like 80 to 90% of all my paychecks just straight to like paying off student loan debt, and was living with my dad at the time. So I had rent free, which I'm very fortunate, I realized, to have that opportunity. So pretty much 2 full years it was dedicated to chipping away at those loans. Because financially, like looking at it just doesn't make sense to be in debt the rest of your life. I know, like America, we try to make sure we all have credit card debt stacked up to the ceiling, but it's just like how we operate, right? Just make everyone in debt for the rest of their lives. But I was just really, really against doing that, of course. And I had the opportunity at the time to pretty much not spend money on anything or very little. That was my 2 years after. I did artwork here and there for sure, you know, in my off time. But yeah, a lot of it was just the grunt work of getting as many hours in as possible to get that paid off. After about the 2 year marker though, I hit really severe like wall of anxiety and depression. I'm sure it had to do with just not being in like a linear, you know, academic setting anymore. Like you go like next thing and the next thing and next thing. And I think I just had this like, I guess, existential crisis or something, just too many like too open and nebulous of an existence. And so I guess it made me panic. And so I pretty much, you know, I put in my 2 weeks notice after a while and decided that I wanted to travel, which looking back, I'm like, well, if I was anxious and everything is so big and scary, like, why would I want to put myself in even more intense situation than that? But I just felt like I hadn't seen anything or done anything. Like I needed a new perspective, like a new latitude or something to feel like I could say something with my art. I felt like I was just kind of sketching on the side and doing art, but I didn't really have anything to say. Which looking back, that's not entirely true. I'm a human. Everyone has something to say. You don't need to go to like Nepal to, you know, have something to say. But anyway, for me, I just felt like that was the next comfortable step to take, is experiencing a little more of the world and life.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it's not just not knowing what to say, but I question myself a lot of times is like, I might have something to say, but who wants to hear it? You know, like, why do they want to listen to me? So I think part of that is just kind of like getting out of your own way to do it, because, you know, it's self-doubt. It's like, you know, we talked to a lady that when I was trying to get her on the podcast, she was like, well, I have nothing interesting to say. I haven't experienced racism and all that. And we had a wonderful conversation. So sometimes it's just like getting out of your way to, you know, to not being in your head about who cares what people think. Is say what you got to say, and, you know, and it'll all fall into place. So did you do traveling then? Did you do like in the United States or international travel or?
It was international. So my boyfriend, I had just met him like the last year in college, and he does photojournalism. Specifically, he was into like war photojournalism. So he's in some pretty intense places for quite a while, embedded with military and stuff like that. So that was, I think, my initial, like, planted the seed for me, is like, I want to have this exposure and experience, not so much in that setting, of course, but I was like, let's go travel. Like, you do this for a living, let's do it together. And so, yeah, we started in Europe, which was, you know, gorgeous. I was like, that's where I'd want to start. Like, I think any Americans, like, that's the first like place that everyone wants to see. And then beyond that, I wanted to, you know, we started going to Southeast Asia, and we'd take, I think we would go for about 3 months at a time. So we'd go to Europe, and we went to Eastern Europe for a while. You know, it's like you go to the places everyone wants to see. And then after a while, I'm like, I want to see the more remote places that a lot of people don't see. And I was really fortunate. We were able to stay in Chernobyl and Pripyat for 10 days. And we got to see all of the settlers that came back after Chernobyl, after the power plant and the radioactive material spread. The government said, we don't want you guys to come back. It's not safe, but they're already in 60s, 70s. And so they're like, we have nowhere else to go except for our farm, our land, you know, out in rural Ukraine. And so we were able to spend some time with them. We had a translator and a driver, and yeah, it would be like from sunrise to sunset, just visiting in their homes, and then visiting, you know, doing the urban exploration that everyone does throughout the city, seeing the buildings and just the rubble and how the environment has grown into it again. It was phenomenal. But anyway, so yeah, it was a lot of Europe and then Asia. And then we started to get into a little bit of the Middle East and then Egypt. So a little bit of Africa. I'd like to go back to Africa at some point.
Yeah, Africa scares me.
Yeah.
So many things there that want to kill you.
Yeah.
I do have a question. So did either one of you work when you were traveling? Was he doing photojournalism? That one. Jobs?
Yeah. So the reason we were in Chernobyl actually was for a workshop. So it's like he had like a student there who we paid some money to get like a really intensive tour guide, like where they basically just, it's not just like your typical Ukrainian tour. It's like we walk around a little bit and like, oh, look at that stuff. But instead, like realize we're going to be out here for 12 hours at a time and you're going to have to translate for us, talking to people and so on and so forth. So he was doing that and I was able to tag along and pay a little bit to have that experience with him and this other student. And then I was doing remote retouching. So it wasn't illustration. It was just from my other jobs, able to do, just pull out my computer and get a thousands upon thousands of images sent to me. And it's just really quick, easy money. So yeah, that was most of it for, I want to say 2 years, like where we would be home and then leave again. And I'd always have like, in the backlog, at least a variety of images to work on and get paid for, and it wasn't that much money, but like we were also staying in pretty low end Airbnbs, hotels, like food costs nothing, in a lot of the places we were at. So it's like, once you make that leap, across the ocean, paying those expensive flights, like by then it's like all these little flights are, maybe $100 here, and like staying in a really nice place, could cost like $10 sometimes. Anyway, so we did seek out these countries that were definitely more affordable for us, that suited us, not having to work a whole lot.
What a great experience.
I want to go back.
Yeah, I bet. I think once you go and do that,
it's
and
over.
You get the bug, yeah, that's
it's over.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the favorite places that you visited in that 2-year period?
Chernobyl for sure. I definitely want to go back. I loved Ukraine overall. They were really nice people, and it was a unique experience. I'd love to see Russia, but I know that'd be tough. I'm going to be very stereotypical. Thailand was phenomenal. They really know how to do tourism there really well.
And it's affordable, isn't it?
It's affordable. You have any type of food you'd ever want, delicious food at all price levels. Same with hotels. Like you just show up there with your suitcase and you walk 2 steps and there's like 400 hotels. Like whatever you want is there in a heartbeat. Like, and it feels exotic. Like I think it's, if I could recommend anybody, I would say going to Southeast Asia, and definitely Thailand is kind of like a good home base. And then you kind of jump to different countries from there. But it's just, and the people are nice. They just really, they really do know how to do tourism. I'm sure they hate it, having all of us there visiting, but I mean, they work really hard, and man, yeah, it's just phenomenal.
Are they pretty American friendly?
Yeah. From my experience, like in the neighborhood, I mean, it's different neighborhoods. You have different vibes, but for the most part, yeah. And you never know, I'm like, are they just smiling through their teeth and just really hate me right now? I can't tell, but it seemed pretty genuine. Like, it just seemed like a really nice place to be. Right now, they're dealing with some really intense pollution problems, but
Yeah, my dad was in Thailand in the 60s, early 60s, pre-Vietnam. He was in the Marine Corps, so it was all paid for.
Wow.
Working with the Thai Marines as well. So yeah, so he got to go there. And then I did Japan and Okinawa, Wake Island, Korea. So I love Asia.
Yeah. Oh, it's so wonderful. I want to go back there too. Oh man, I can't imagine 1960s Thailand. If I could, I would love to time travel. She'd be like, all right, I'm going to go to 1970s Egypt, Cairo.
There you go.
But yeah.
Yeah, I got my dad has pictures of when he was there. So it's really kind of cool to see it, in these photographs, black and white photographs from like 1963 or 62 or something like that. Yeah. And then Todd is a European traveler right before he went to college, right after high school, right, Todd?
Yeah, I'd already tried college and it didn't take. So I bummed around Europe for about 3 months. And that was a great experience. I think everybody should do that, especially when you're young. Don't get hung up on, if you have a career path and you're really excited about it, good for you. But if you don't know what you want to do, and I think there's a lot of kids that don't, I highly suggest traveling. I think it's one of the most, it's one of the best educations you can get.
I totally agree. I know. I wish our country kind of pushed that a little bit more. Unfortunately, we don't. And
Yeah. Another of my favorite places I've ever been to is Israel. I didn't think I'd like Israel, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful. People were really, really wonderful. And I had a great experience. I was in college then, so that was later. First round was in the Marine Corps, the Asia thing, and then college was Israel, the Middle East, and that was a lot of fun.
I would love to go to Israel. We didn't make it there yet, but we did go to Turkey, which was another favorite for sure. A lot of influences and obviously gorgeous buildings, good food, all that stuff.
While you were doing this retouching to earn a little bit of money, were you also doing your own work? Were you still working on your illustration and doing that sort of thing? And then you do photography as well. Beyond retouching photography, is that where you kind of really got the photo bug?
Yeah. So Zariah, my boyfriend, he does these phenomenal, really dark images. He goes to places where acid burn victims and like showing the darker side of the news that America doesn't want to present, things like that. And I was so taken by it. And so I was like, please just teach me, we're traveling. And so he'd kind of like give me some thoughts here and there on like how he creates his artwork basically. And it was kind of fun to do that. And anyway, I ended up starting to shoot just people that I thought were interesting that I was like, I definitely want to draw them later. So like our trip definitely fell into a more creative outlet as well, where, at nighttime when we get back to the hotel, it's like I'd go through like my thousands of images, be like, oh yeah, there was that one guy, I want to sketch him with, I'd pick out a person I thought was very unique or interesting, whatever seemed to have a kind of a story or a smirk or whatever, you name it, and then piece it together with like the surrealistic components of the environment, just like suggesting environments and stuff like that. And honestly, I didn't really have anything to say so much about it, except just being exposed to different people, cultures, and places, and just kind of mashing them together in what made sense to me visually. And I think that's when I started getting a lot of interest in my artwork, and it started to feel more like my style started to form. And it was out of also not having a lot of time or space so basically I ended up doing pen and ink drawings because it was the easiest thing to bring. And I didn't want to deal with paint and water and so on and so forth. So that like kind of informed the first part of my style, where it's like, I really loved pen and ink. And it was the easiest to travel with. By the time I got home, it's like, I couldn't stop using that medium. And I always like how quick it was too. And it's like, you start to make these marks and you can't necessarily go back on it. Like I can't overthink myself to death on it. And I just commit to it. And however the piece finishes is how it's done. But I think people were really taken by seeing, like different interesting places and people. And then, having kind of a more interesting, energetic style to it. So people were asking about purchasing stuff and prints and things like that. So that was fun.
So not only did that experience give you more of a worldview that helped inform the work that you do now, but it also helped you really find your voice, it sounds like.
Yeah. I think what Wes said too, or one of you said, is like just getting in my own way. And maybe it was just being so distracted with so many new things, and just like soaking it all up, that I wasn't just sitting at home, like with so much time to just overthink something to death. It's just like, you're just kind of on the run and like on a train or whatever, and just kind of got to get some pieces finished and don't overthink it. Yeah, I really miss that. I definitely, when COVID's over, we've been talking, like we really want to obviously go on our next trip. And so my mom, she worked for United Airlines. And so the way I was able to afford even those big flights overseas, that usually cost upwards of like $1,000, is I would have standby tickets for those. So whenever there was a space available, just like hop on for free. So it's a lot of like waiting in the airport, not knowing, like sleeping in the airports, discomfort, but it's obviously well worth it for a free, really insanely expensive ticket. So
I think it sounds phenomenal. And I would sign up in a heartbeat to go do that right now. I'm so jonesing for a road trip right now. I can't stand it.
Oh, yeah. That would be fun.
So let me ask you this. What is the role of Illustrator?
You mean like as a profession?
Yeah. Like, what are the characteristics and what defines like good illustration?
Well, illustration, I think, is more applied to, as fine art is a little more nebulous and open-ended, and you can create whatever you want, whatever medium, which I guess illustration is similar, but I'd say it's now applied to problem solving. So to me, it's almost kind of a medium between graphic design and fine art, where you're using imagery to problem solve either, a difficult concept or idea, or even a book, a story. So it's applying those visual cues and concepts into quick, readable ideas and thoughts that maybe it's a little bit harder to understand just with words or, written text. Right now, I honestly can't even say if there's a distinctive line between fine art and illustration at this point. Like, there's not even a real, like, I see a lot of amazing illustrators, and like you say, it still looks like fine art to me. Like, it's really amazingly composed, well done technical stuff that takes a lot of time, and now seeing even vectorized imagery, in editorial works and stuff like that. It's a lot of graphic designers who can then employ their other techniques from Illustrator or vectorized based icons and things, and they just build out an even bigger picture of that, and bam, it's illustration. I don't know. To me, it's all just a kind of a fluid, fluid visual expression from, more simplistic graphic design to all the way out into the edges of fine art.
When I look at illustration, I look at very much probably the way that your boyfriend approaches it, and then the way that I approach like an editorial assignment. You're a visual storyteller, but you're really trying to tell that story with one image. In that one image, you're trying to say or describe what's happening. And that's hard work sometimes to pull that off, to pull it off conceptually and to, have that ability to describe the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. There was my most recent one for Scientific American. It was going to be a printable 3x3-inch little spot illustration. But within that, they wanted to get across like 4 or 5 different ideas, basically. And I was like, if it was a large piece, I have all this time to create an entire narrative and story. But when it's just one small image that has to be readable, eye-catching, interesting, and, succinctly combine a lot of different concepts. It was very challenging, but it was fun. I love that aspect of it too, where it's not just open-ended, just doing a drawing for myself, where it's like, no, it has to be, here are your limitations. Now go.
What image was that?
It was from a op-ed, I think it was called World on Fire. And so it's the woman carrying the world on her shoulders with the mask. So it's like communicating multiple generations, experiencing how the world is falling apart, from previous generations, and then also COVID. And I think it was like one other component too. And it was just hard to communicate specific generational things using the masks in a positive light, due to COVID, it is this time. And then the fact that, they're supporting it. So I went with like an Atlas style figure where she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulder. So
I love it. It's beautiful.
It was tough.
When you get an illustration job, let's say this one, do you own the rights to the illustration, or do they purchase the illustration from you and now they own the rights to it?
So far, it's been I own the rights. Okay. They just say, do not share it until, we've published it, right, and then here's your safe time frame to show it. But from what I've discussed, like, it's still my imagery and I'm still able to produce prints from it. And
so you could sell these prints to the public if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Nice. My other question is, do they send you the article to read to get an idea, or do they just, they do?
Yes, they will send me the article, and sometimes it's a really, I think, trying to remember. So there was one issue, and it had, I think it was, I had 3 pieces to do for them, and so it was like multiple different articles. But and sometimes they'll even just summarize. They're like, here's the full article if you really want to dig deep into the nitty gritty, but here's also the summary of, what we're thinking, what this all means for what we want to present. And in addition, this is all Scientific American, like they'll send me stuff that's like, we need to make sure, like, if you are going to include mathematics, like we want it to be these equations, or it can't be this, like, here are the list of things that you are allowed to use if you want to. Which makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a science magazine. They don't want like an artist to like pretend that they know quantum physics or anything. Like, I don't know.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. That was a great question, Wes. I'm glad you asked that, because that was going to be one of mine for sure. I think it's interesting that, so you read these articles and then you come up with the concept, and then is there back and forth between you and the editor or whoever you're working with as far as, or the art director, as far as your concept? Are you giving them sketches as it's coming along, or like updates? I guess I would say. Yeah.
So it is, I'm only speaking with the art director, and once they send me the concept, I have a certain amount of time, to give them the drawings back. Yeah, it's thumbnails for me. Like, here's some readable, decent, colorized thumbnails. And they don't even ask me specifically. It's just my comfort level. I'm like, I want it to look decent, like I know what I'm doing. But I'll send them, maybe 5 examples or something. Like, here's some different concepts. And then the art director will discuss it with multiple editors. And there could be, an underlying concept that I missed, or I think most recently I sent them a bunch of sketches, but it looked like I was putting mask wearing in a negative light. So they came back and said, hey, like, these are great, but we need to make sure that we're, making it look like mask wearing is a positive thing, not negative. So things like that, where maybe I didn't even think about it. And so that's when they come back. And once they finally say, okay, well, we like sketch number 1 and sketch number 3, maybe combine them in whatever way you like. And, it's due in this day, and they don't even want to see anything from there on out. Like, once they've picked the thumbnail concept, then they just trust me to finish the piece out in whatever way I see fit. So far.
I think the whole process is incredibly interesting. So I want to talk about this piece real quick. This World is on Fire, and it's right on Brooks. If you go to under work, it's right there on the very top of the page. Obviously, we have the concept. Why did you so choose to put a woman as carrying the world on her shoulders?
I think for me, I'm still trying really hard to just show diversity in general. It really wasn't to say like women are doing more than men in any way, but I think it's just common for men to be the focal point in a lot of things. And it wasn't just like a fuck you to men either. It's just more trying to be cognizant of representing different backgrounds and cultures and people. It's like, we are the melting pot. And so this is the whole world. So I don't know. It was just, I usually try to show women, and then, different ethnicities as well.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to hear the thought. Yeah. I think it's good to be cognizant, especially in the modern day world, to show the diversity of people and different genders and, the whole gamut.
But here's where my head goes. Like, when I see this image, right, I see a nurse, could be a doctor, but definitely somebody of the medical field, and with the whole COVID thing and the world being on fire. And I really liked it. I definitely seen the connection to Atlas. She has this burden that she's carrying, but I definitely seen like a nurse figure or a doctor figure. And I think it's great. And I love it. And I'm glad you put a woman on there. I think that's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
So here we go, Wes. Are you ready?
Here it is.
Here it is.
And I knew it was, I smiled to myself as soon as you asked that question. I knew it was coming. Our listeners will know what we're talking about. Go ahead and hit it up, Todd.
So women, I feel, are nurturers, and they're the ones that carry the flame, that keep us moving forward. When I look at the hand igniting the fire on the earth, on our planet, I see that as a male hand. Men tend to be the destroyers. If you look at like major companies that aren't being environmentally conscious or whatever, most of the CEOs are men, right? And they're not thinking about the environmental impact that it may have on generations to come, whether it's their children or grandchildren or great grandchildren. They just do it because they have to appease their stockholders and the bottom line, right? Women are nurturers. And when I see the woman, I look at her almost like a, like an activist, I just see the strong female figure, and she's carrying that burden because she knows what this is going to mean, the impact that it's going to have on future generations and her children, if she has children or grandchildren or what have you. I just think it's a wonderful image, and I loved how you illustrated it. It's incredibly powerful. And I got to imagine that not only is this work really fun and challenging, but it's exciting at the same time. You're illustrating articles that are talking about really important issues in the science community and as the world, in the world as a whole. So I would imagine it's really phenomenal experience what you get to do.
I'm so thankful. Yeah, that's amazing that you read, a completely different thing from that. And I won't discount it. I prefer it even more, honestly. That's why I'm like afraid. I shy away from like trying to describe things sometimes and just let the images speak in whatever way that you interpret them. It's
I think
totally
as a
valid.
layman, though, we want to hear what you were thinking when you're creating that. And that goes for anything. I would love to hear what Mark Rothko was thinking when he's doing his color blocking. Once the artist is done and releases it to the world, it's no longer theirs. It's the world's to interpret however they want. And everybody will walk away with a different feeling, a different interpretation. And that's great. And that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to move you one way or another. This is one of those images that when you look at it, and a lot of your images is this way, but when you look at it, you are moved one way or another for sure.
Oh, that's really great. I'm so excited. And I'm so thankful to, and I'm not going to pretend to know, every political thing that's happening right now in the news and things like that. I'll leave that to professionals, but I am very appreciative to at least employ my mastered technique or whatever into something that does feel like it means something, even if it's just helping solicit these ideas, that we need to be aware of. So I'm very thankful. And it is a fun process, of course. I'm so thankful.
Yeah, I bet.
So my follow-up question, Brooke, is how did you get in with Scientific American? Did you send them marketing materials? Had they seen other work that you had done in another publication? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I was strictly just sending marketables to people. Just I sent postcards to, I think it was like 25 different publications, and then heard back from the art director from here saying, we'd love to work with you. I was floored. I was like, there's no way. It's just like you're just sending out this little, like message in a bottle, like on a carrier pigeon. It's like I don't even know if it actually made it to the right building. You just hope that it actually made it into the right hands of the people. And most of the time you don't hear anything. But yeah, it's well worth it. I think that's, to me, so crucial, is finding those breadcrumbs that other artists leave. Like I worked with this art director on this magazine for this project, and I'm like, oh my God, that's, a similar style to mine. Or, I could see my work being alongside that in the same magazine. It's like, well, who was the art director? Yeah. What was the magazine? And you start to kind of jot this down and like doing a little detective work and figuring out how to reach these people and sending out your work. I'm hoping to do this like quarterly, sending out more and more stuff to generate more publications. We'll see.
Well, and that was going to be my next question for you. How long you've been doing this and how often you send out postcards. And this is, we're in year 2021. This is an old school tactic as far as marketing is concerned, which I love. That's fantastic. It's good to hear that you were able to get in with Scientific American by sending out a marketing postcard, and that people still pay attention to that.
Yeah. And I talked to somebody who said, it would not be a bad idea to stick to that. In addition to sending out emails, but, people are so distracted on their computers, and sometimes just getting a physical thing in the mail, like you have my attention for a minute at least. It's not like I just get lost in the shuffle of, oh, I was doing this one thing in my email, and then, oh no, I'm looking on YouTube and doing this. It's like, it is a physical thing that is there that, yeah, you can choose to throw it away, but I don't know. I think it's a little more attention grabbing and seems like a little more thought and, investment went into it. So I hope that speaks to other people as well. Like, I'm seriously interested in working with you. It's not just another, generic distribution email.
Yeah.
Which I would send a nice tailored email in addition to that, assuming, because people aren't even working in their buildings anymore. But
I didn't even think about that, but that's a good point that, now people might be working remotely and it might be a little difficult, forever. But you assume that their mail eventually gets back to them somehow, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great tactic, and I'm glad that it was successful for you and that you're doing it and you're considering to, continue doing this marketing this way.
Yeah, I know. I was like, as I was doing, I was like, there's no chance in hell, like, but why not? And I definitely, it's nice too, because those publications act as advertising for me as well. And I definitely get more interest from other people. I think I have a filmmaker who's reaching out to me this week who's interested in working with me. They're like, oh, I saw it in Scientific American, what you're doing. I love your work, so on and so forth.
So when you did this research you said you sent it out to 25 magazines, something like that, these postcards?
Yeah. I mean, I probably should have done more, but they were the ones that seemed to produce, or they actually employ freelance illustrators first off, and they don't just use photography. Like, there's a lot of magazines I'd love to work with, but it looks like they don't. It's just like they don't operate in that way. And that's not to say I wouldn't send it out, but it seems like definitely, less of a chance. So for me, it was like the 25 were the narrowed down ones that I thought would be genuinely like work well with my style. I've seen them, employ other illustrators who are also creating high-end imagery. So the ones that seem to fit me nicely, I guess.
So you figured out which ones would fit with your style, but was there also consideration as far as the magazine itself? Like, hey, I really love this magazine and I'd love to work with them just because I like the magazine.
I mean, Scientific American was like the one that I always wanted to work with. So I don't know if it's just kismet or just the fact that, subconsciously I already create work that's very similar to their stuff. I'm sure it's that one. And I was floored. I was like, of all the magazines, that's the one that I like to read. And, it's just one that I enjoy the most for sure. So.
Do you have a science mind? Are you intrigued by science?
Yeah, I'm terrible at science and math, but for some reason I loved learning it. I did get A's, but I can't remember half the equations I learned or anything. It's not like I'm continuing that study, but I'm definitely would love to sit down and just watch Carl Sagan documentaries and things like that, watch stuff about supernovas for sure. And it's total oxymoron, but as an artist, like, there's comfort to me in math because it makes sense, and you either get it right or you don't. Something about that is a little comforting. The world is so gray, and like for me, like math is so black and white, and so it was fun to be like, oh, I got the right answer, like through all of these equations and things like that. So.
It's probably why you don't like politics, because it's all gray. There's no black and white. Hey, so I want to go, I think Todd was leading into this question, but you said you sent out these postcards, these different magazines. How did you select the postcard that you were going to send?
So I want to
Did you send the same postcard to everybody? Maybe I should start there.
I did. And now I'm doing this again and definitely tailoring it more specifically to each magazine. Like, here's some portraits for whatever, Rolling Stone, because that's usually how they employ illustrators, is for, a band portrait or something. Yeah. And then, science specific stuff. And I mean, it's not like really specific, but, probably within like 3 different images, I would be like, all right, this image goes here, this image goes there. And I hope that communicates, like doing the research and knowing a little bit about, their background and what they normally work with. But yeah.
So Scientific American was at the top of the list. What were, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just kind of curious, like where your brain goes and how you think, but what were some of the other publications that you were interested in working with?
Let's see. I'm trying to think now. I would love to work with Rolling Stone. They do a lot. There's a lot of amazing illustrators I follow that have really gorgeous portrait styles, and I love doing portraits. So it seems like it would be another fun one. Honestly, any science magazine, I've seen like New Scientist produce some beautiful stuff. I'd love to do Psychology Today, but it doesn't seem like they employ a lot of illustrators. It's almost all photography. And I haven't seen a whole lot of editorial illustrators, at least in my bubble on Instagram or whoever I follow. Like I haven't seen anyone working for like Psychology Today or anything like that. But I would love to do any type of psychology magazine. I'm very interested in that type of stuff and illustrating it. Obviously I like some more cerebral stuff anyway, so it just kind of makes sense.
I know as a photographer, editorial photography is not like on the upper echelon of paying gigs. The editorial world doesn't have a lot of money. Typically, they don't have big budgets, especially now in this day and age with magazines kind of going all digital and stuff. Is it the same way with illustration? Does it pay very well? You don't have to give us specifics, but
I mean, from my experience, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's limited experience, so someone else could probably have shed more light on their personal experience with it. But for me, yeah, it's well worth even for me to like spend extra time noodling on stuff just for fun. Like it's worth the extra time for sure.
In the state of where I guess publications are at, do you feel like you've missed the heyday of illustration for magazines or not?
It's a good question. I worry about that sometimes too. I think it's now hitting it seems to me that there's more illustration out there all of a sudden. For a while there wasn't, and now I feel like I'm seeing it again. And I'm hoping that that'll continue to grow, especially with, books too. I'd love to do some more book illustrations, but it seems like people are falling back into loving a handcrafted art piece. And I don't know, honestly, I'm not sure why, but it seems like illustration is getting a second wind or a third wind or whatever you want to call it. And maybe that's just my exposure. I don't know. It could just be because we now have Instagram and Facebook and everyone's doing all these things. And so I'm just exposed to it all the time. It's hard to objectively look at it, from someone who's not in that bubble. But I feel like I keep seeing it more and more in newer places, even like big billboard advertisements and like people deciding we want a more organic look, not it's like shying away from really flat graphic stuff sometimes. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a guess for all of us. I've been around a while, but we've seen the heyday of, it seems like newspapers and magazines are really, and the music industry is, the photography industry, everything is switched because of the digital media. And I think it maybe just takes a time where they have to get their legs under them. But, you still see illustrations everywhere. I was just trying to figure out what you thought and I know you have somewhat of a limited view because you haven't been doing this for 40 years. If you did, you probably have a different view, but yeah, I was just kind of curious of how you thought things were going. So
yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah. Like you said, I don't have like that scope, but it seems like there's a lot of interest in it for sure. Even like with other companies I've worked with, they're like, suddenly we want our brand to have this feel and we want to have characters and illustration and this. And it's interesting to me how often it does come up, knowing how niche of a career path it is. I'm usually pleasantly surprised by like overhearing other companies interested in employing a hand-drawn style and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is awesome. I think it's really cool. Have you done this kind of work, this editorial work for other publications in addition to Scientific American?
Nothing major, no, like smaller stuff. That's about it. I think it was like a local magazine a while back, like Birdie. And I think it was for homelessness, like local stuff. But yeah, nothing major aside from Scientific American. And then, yeah, just doing some book publications for it was for a professor at DU who has like a doctorate, and she published a couple books prior and she wanted to have like quite a few illustrations in her book. So that was fun. I got to go to like a little book opening and whatever, but yeah, I still feel like I'm kind of just starting.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where this trajectory of yours.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's learning to just enjoy the process of it is definitely the greatest achievement for me, is just enjoying making it. And even if it doesn't get purchased or go anywhere, you know, just falling back in love with that again. Because for a while I really hated it.
What did you hate about it?
I think just feeling like my work wasn't getting good enough, fast enough, you know, and then putting that added pressure on myself to every new piece had to be perfect or like exceptional, like beyond the scope of my current, you know, capabilities. And so it's like I'd sit on one piece for so long to the point where I just absolutely hated it. And I hated the process. And then next thing I know, it's like I'm only creating maybe like 3 or 4 finished illustrations a year, because I just didn't want to do it. And so realizing like long form, like larger projects, I need to also have small wins in tandem with that in order to still feel like I'm producing something, accomplishing something. So I think I was forcing myself into like a certain kind of schedule or like way of doing something that really just didn't work for me. So like stepping back and recognizing that was huge for me, and falling back in love with just creating like mini portraits or mini drawings, and then being pleasantly surprised that a lot of people have been following it and like want to purchase originals and prints. So anyway, it's been very frustrating and anxiety riddling journey, but honestly, COVID's been really great for me because I've stopped thinking too much about making a bunch of money on something or having all these big successes and big names under my belt, and just enjoying sitting down at the table and like maybe just doing a drawing for 2 hours and post it. Next thing I know, it sells. I'm like, fantastic.
That's awesome.
Oh,
that is phenomenal.
I want to talk about a piece if we could. The one I really like is City Dweller with the birds.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Can you talk? Go ahead, Todd.
That's a wonderful piece.
Yeah. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah, I think that was the one I sent out that I ended up getting work from Scientific American. What was that one was for? I think it was for a gallery. I mean, they were just like, do what you want, but we have 3 pieces, and I honestly can't even remember what the show was about. It's so bad.
Sorry.
But yeah, it was yeah, it was just like a funny little idea on like, you know, how, you know, what happens to all the shit that we're not recycling, and just kind of following that little journey. And so it's like most likely a pigeon will probably be picking it up and using it as their own nest, and, you know, just kind of like a little comical, but also depressing. Like here's that visual of what the world looks like, where we have all of our recyclables just become part of the environment now, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I like all the little things that are cigarette butts and a can and look like earbuds.
Definitely.
I love that. I think that's so cool. And it speaks volumes. I'm totally get it. So I love it.
I'm glad you brought that up, Wes, because as I was prepping for this interview, I was scrolling through Brooke's website, and Barb was kind of passing through the room, and she wanted to see what Brooke's art looked like. And she glommed on to this particular piece too. She's like, oh, that's really cool. And I think it's, like Wes said, it's magnificent. It really resonates. And your style, I love your style.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's so funny. Now that you're talking about it more, I remember when it was at the gallery, this like electrician came by, and he was like obsessed with it and really wanted to purchase it. And I was like, this would be awesome. I would love it if you bought that piece. But yeah, I didn't even think about it. He's like, yes, like all the telephone cords and things.
So did he buy it, or did somebody else buy it?
I think somebody else ended up buying it, and it was just a print, you know, it wasn't an original or anything.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this was digital. So
yeah. How big is it? Oh, I guess it's any size. Or how big was it in the gallery?
Well, it wasn't that big. It's maybe 9x12.
Okay.
If I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah. So a person could buy that if they wanted a print of it.
Yeah. I know. I think it's in my shop.
Okay.
I have to get another print run going of stuff. Usually I wait until someone wants to purchase something and then I'll make another print run.
My wife's a huge RGB fan. So the picture you have of RGB is, she looks stern and very powerful. And she was, for a little lady. She command the room. I love that. So you really capture her essence as being a powerful person, in a sense, because she was a tiny little lady, but she command the room when she was in it.
Oh, I know. Yeah. She has such a chilling stare sometimes. I'm like, whoa, like pulling references and looking at that face. It's pretty magnificent. I just love people's faces and accentuating, the lines in their face from just living. And anyway, yeah. It's a blast.
What was this piece? Was it a commission piece, or was this something you just put together?
Yeah, it was the day that she had passed. I like busted this out really quickly, as a homage, like a lot of artists.
Yeah.
But it's just, I felt strongly about it. And I was like, it's worthwhile for me to spend the afternoon and do this. So.
And I don't care what your political stance is. She knew the law. She knew the Constitution, and whether you agreed with her or not, she knew how to, really put forth her argument, and then having such a great relationship with Scalia, the total polar opposite of how they thought and what they believed the Constitution, because he was an originalist and she wasn't. I have nothing but tons of respect for that woman. She was amazing at what she did. And I'm glad she got to do it as long as she did.
Oh, I know. It's really phenomenal. And I do really respect her. I actually have not watched her documentary yet. I know that came out a little while ago, but I'd really like to see that.
You got to watch it. It's great. Yeah, you'll love it.
Yeah, it's been on my list for a while.
So in addition to doing the editorial stuff, you do stuff for yourself, your personal work. You sell prints of this, I know, and I want to talk about that in a moment. But you've also done posters. Is that right?
Yeah, and these are all just self-initiated posters.
Okay.
That I end up selling prints for, limited edition prints and things like that. I would love to do more posters and maybe dig into that a little bit more and do some posters for Mondo or something like that. But for the time being, it's all just kind of a passion projects.
I want to go back to the editorial work. So when you create these pieces, do you end up scanning the original piece and then sending that to the art director, or how does that work?
So all of those have been digital. So it's just for the sake of like non-destructive creation, not worrying about having a traditional line art that I'd have to suddenly go back and change. At least in Photoshop, it's just like tag a layer on and off or toggle it on and off. If they're like, oh, we like this, but let's change that. So it just makes more sense.
I would have thought you used Illustrator. The way you design, it seems very Illustrator-ish. Another great Adobe product, which I use all the time. Yeah. But primarily in Photoshop?
Yeah, that's, I'm just, from doing retouching work, I just know that program inside and out, and it's just I'm comfortable with it. I would love to learn more Illustrator. I mean, I know of it, but it just takes way longer. I can create something in Photoshop so much faster. So Just stick to it. Yeah, there's not a lot of texture in my stuff either. And I don't like to work with opacities because then it starts to feel muddy and less, I don't know, it just doesn't compute for me. So I can see why it looks like it's created in Illustrator, not Photoshop. Because I don't use the program as painterly as a lot of other artists do. It's definitely more like a direct, decided mark making.
So this is the second time we've talked to a person that, we thought for sure did their work in Illustrator if they did it digitally, but it's actually Photoshop. We talked to an animator that works on The Simpsons, and he does all the background stuff for The Simpsons, and he does all that stuff in Photoshop. And he was
cool.
Yeah, he was saying how, everybody always thinks that he must work in Illustrator, but he learned how to use Photoshop, and he just never felt like delving into the whole Illustrator thing, and Photoshop is much faster for him. So, and he, he talked about working in, the various layers and stuff. And he said, it's just faster and easier for me.
Kindred spirits. That's how I feel for sure. I'm like, I don't want to mess with this pen tool very much. Just, I'm confident and strong in Photoshop. Just stick to it.
Yeah, and I like Illustrator. Well, and part of it is because I used to work, well, I still work in the print industry to a certain degree, but I worked in the print industry and everything had to be vector art. So everything was redrawn by, in Illustrator. So I would take somebody else's art and then redraw it. So
Oh
that
my
was,
God.
so it was, and it was down to dirty stuff. It wasn't intricate stuff like this, but yeah. So that's why when I see stuff, like The Last Black Man in San Francisco, I see a lot of geometric design and I'm like, oh, that would be not easy, because it's not easy, Wesley. It's not easy, Wes. But easier than in Photoshop. But yeah.
I mean, I probably should play around with it, honestly, but in Photoshop, it was a lot of noodling around. Like this shape, suddenly creates too weird of a chiseled jaw, and I need to change it out for a different shape. So it was like
Sure.
layer upon layer upon layer of just such quick mark making just to get the general idea. And I'm sure once I solidified it, I could translate it to Illustrator. But at that point, like, why bother?
Why?
Yeah,
Right.
just because, I guess.
And they're just
No.
doing color separations on in those magazines anyway. So they'll just print, their CMYK build or whatever and call it good. But yeah, so I looked at, all of them. I'm like, oh yeah, probably use this Illustrator pretty, or I'm like with Todd, I thought you hand drew all these and then, digitized it that way. But
You're not wrong either. I definitely a lot of the time do hand drawn stuff, scan it in. So the City Dweller one is a hybrid for sure. I do have like the original black and white pen drawing, and then I'll scan that in.
And then you colored it from there. Oh,
yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. So
Nice.
There's a lot where I'm falling back into that now, like with my own personal stuff, where it's like 80% of it is, hand drawn. And then the last little bit is just kind of like my own little coloring book, basically.
Yeah.
Just fill it in and play around with some, play around with different hue, saturation, whatever, quick edit stuff.
I can't even imagine how many layers you end up with when it's all said and done.
It's a stupid amount for sure. I am not efficient in any way. I will not pretend to be.
Well, the nice thing is you can isolate a layer and just work on that layer without damaging the other ones. That's what's beautiful about it. So
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I guess a lot of programs are that way too.
Yeah.
I started playing with Procreate just recently.
Oh, you're the second person that's met that. So
how do you like that?
I really like it. I had to turn off a lot of the default settings because literally it's like you set your hand on the screen sometimes and it starts to make a mark. So their new pencil is so sensitive. So I got the second generation Apple pencil, and I don't know, it seems like they had a lot of they overlooked a lot of things. Like maybe they didn't get like an artist to really sit down and draw, but it's so sensitive that I would accidentally toggle between like the pencil mark making and then an eraser, because it's like all you have to do is slide your hand on like the side of the pencil, which you do naturally by holding it, and suddenly you're erasing. So anyway, going on like a rampage about it, but it was a lot of default adjustment settings. But I do really like it. They have a component to it. It's kind of, I can't remember the term for it, but it basically allows your line like mark making to be really smooth, like smooths it over. And I know Photoshop has that, but not to the same degree as this one. So there's things about that I wish I could just apply in Photoshop, but I can't. So I can just pick and choose.
Maybe the next version of Photoshop is really good about seeing where their shortcomings are and making adjustments. So you'll probably see it in a newer version.
You're probably right.
You're not the only one that's having that same issue.
Yeah. I know it's probably you guys probably hear about it constantly from everybody.
So do you use a Wacom board, or what do you use to draw on?
Yeah, I finally so for Photoshop, I finally made the leap like 4 years ago or something, and I bought it's a UG tablet, but yeah, it's a monitor tablet.
Okay.
I couldn't afford the Wacom one, but I mean, it's all about the same. And it's so much better. It's so much better. Just having that space and to be able to actually draw on the screen, it was a game changer for me. I felt like I had way more control over like my mark making for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that question, Wes, because I was curious how that worked. And I was imagining I know you can train your brain and your hand to work in conjunction as you're working on a tablet and looking at the screen. But I would think it would be like light years difference between doing that and actually being on one of these tablet screen, whatever they call those things, and working that way. I would have to work that way because even though I have a tablet and I use it for retouching and stuff, sometimes it's just, I don't know. It's just I'm not in tune with it.
Same. I felt that way too. And I felt like my process got so much easier and so much faster. And it was like the aha moment. Like I really needed one. And I just waited way too long.
So I've done all my drawing and my photo touching up either on a trackpad or a mouse. And
no.
Yes. And so trying to transition to the pen is so sensitive that I just get frustrated because it picks up that pen before I'm even like close to it, and it starts to do things and it just drives me insane. So, but I know, like I got a friend, I've talked about him before, Mike Wolforth, and he's a Photoshop guru, and, to watch him do touch up or, he uses a Wacom board for everything. I mean, the only thing he uses a keyboard for is to type in text, like commands. He can still, he just whips around that Wacom board like there's nobody's business. And boy, it just, every time I pick up the pen, it's a struggle.
There's definitely, there's a little learning curve there, I guess. I totally forgot about that. But it's like once you get to that, like once you get comfortable, it's hard to go back, I think.
Right. No, I totally see that.
But yeah, that's gosh, those hotkeys, oh my gosh, my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely like a Photoshop geek all around. Used it for way too many different projects and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Love it.
So we talked about a few of the different things that you do. What other kind of work do you do, Brooke?
Yeah, so I love Inktober. I have to say that's my jam. I don't know if you guys ever see that on Instagram, but it's like the dedicated month of October where all the artists or any artist who wants to participate, you just create, it's a drawing challenge. So every day you create a new drawing. And the idea is you want to create it all in ink, but it's opened up to like, if you're a painter, do it in paint, whatever. But that is like the epitome of what I love to do. It's like all creepy, spooky, themed stuff. And it's pen and ink, and it forces me to create artwork more quickly. So I've been doing that a lot, and then kind of expanding on that, creating my own folklore pieces, like different, like researching different parts of the world, and like what type of folklore do they, spread, cautionary tales to their children. And a lot of it, is weird, scary monsters and demons and just bizarre shit. And for me, I just love that. I think it lends itself well to my interest and style. So I've been creating almost like little poster, like lowbrow poster designs of different folklore creatures. So yeah, a little bit of just a lot of fast, small projects to keep things loose, and people tend to really like it. So that's been like a nice little money generator on the side where people want to purchase the originals. And yeah.
I love that folklore work that you have on your website and in your shop. Anybody that's listening, you definitely have to go to Brooke's website for one, but also to her shop and just see, she's got all kinds of prints available and some original work as well. So definitely check that out. But I love that whole folklore series that you've done and that theme that you've explored. What draws you to the whole horror thing?
I think I started watching horror movies when I was like 5. So, and I just haven't stopped. My parents both are just confounded. They're like, why do you draw this macabre artwork? They don't understand it. You're not going to make any money. But I just can't stop. I don't know. It's something that I love. And it's not even so much like, like blood and gore as much as just, I love little like spooky things, like make little ghosts like pop out of haunted houses, but they're friends, and they're laughing, and just like a playful thing on like the darker side of stuff.
Well, you have the Addams family, you have Frankenstein, Nosferatu, I can't say his name, Dracula.
Nosferatu, yeah.
There you go, Nosferatu. So you have all those different Beetlejuice. Yeah, they're all really cool. So okay, I'm going to ask this another legal question. Maybe you don't want to answer it. Some of these things are probably trademark images, like Wednesday and Beetlejuice. Do you have to get a permission to do that, or
I haven't.
Okay,
I've heard
maybe
of people running into
anything.
that. I've heard of people running into that issue, especially at like conventions, but I've never. I want to say I probably like not big enough of a artist, probably fly under the radar.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked.
No, I mean, that's totally fair question. I asked myself that. I'm like, I don't know. I've never asked for permission, but I mean, that's all I see on Instagram is just artists creating this stuff. And at this point, I don't know how they manage that. I guess if they start seeing people making, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's probably an issue, but maybe for such piecemeal,
and maybe all they need is the Eagles lawyers. The band, the Eagles, because they will shut you down. And Eminem, evidently, because TikTok, there's some girls that do some stuff with Eminem, mostly sign language ladies. And next time you go watch, no sound. So I know that the lawyers, Don Henley's lawyers, are like, take it down, or Eminem's lawyer, take it down, or whoever.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. So some people don't play. Other ones are probably like, it's exposure for my Beetlejuice movie, so maybe somebody will go watch it. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I was wondering.
I'm sure one of these days I'll get one and I'll just be like, okay, whatever. We'll take it down.
Yeah. I mean, that's all they do is just send you a letter first.
Right. Yeah. Cease and desist letter.
Right. Yeah. But I really love these drawings. They're really good. And these, so you so you sell prints of these as well.
Yeah.
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 And I see you have a collection of them. Where was that? Like you could buy the whole October stack.
Yeah, I had someone who was interested in that, so I created a bundle specifically for that one. Or like buying 5 or something. Just like it's upselling, but people who want multiples but don't want to pay full price, which I completely understand. Making it as accessible to anybody as possible. Like I don't need to gouge anybody.
Yeah,
there's small little prints. And
what size are they? I was just going to ask. What size are they?
Yeah. So most of those from at least this last Inktober, they were 4x6. And then recently, so the folklore though is about 7x10.
Okay.
And then lately I've been kind of going up in size a little bit, 5x7. But they're all like, for me, I just really love creating stuff within an afternoon. And it's a great challenge, and it's helps me commit to mark making. And I just love that process. So anyway, I've been making them a little bit smaller and more manageable. And then they're easy to ship. It's a lot cheaper to ship them. Anyway, it's just makes my whole life easier.
Yeah. That's really smart, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the shipping part, but yeah.
Yeah.
Fit
it's like
in
less materials.
First class envelope and off they go. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I'm with both of you. I love the whole myth making thing, or the myth aspect of it. The Brothers Grimm stories, and even like Snow White and all that. They're moral tales. I think the good guy has to win in the end, and I've been so frustrated in the last 10, 15 years of movies that when the movie ends, the bad guy gets away with it, and you're like, what are you trying to teach my kid if the bad guy gets away with it? I mean, I think they're just tired of the same cliche, the good guy wins. But these are moral tales that, tell a tale of, be careful what you do when you go, like, the old hook on or on the door of the car. Be careful if you're going parking out in the middle of the woods, something bad may happen to you. So
don't be necking. Yeah.
Right. Don't be making out. And the pretty blonde gets it right away.
Yes. We all know not to do that.
Right. Anyway, I love it.
Yeah.
These are
thanks.
great.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to creating more of them. I'd love to make a little book for myself, and if people want it, sell it, but mainly just for fun, of just like different regions of the world, and having each one have like a handful of different little character folklore people. So.
And I bet you travel in the Eastern Bloc nations, the stories that, the myths they have, the stories of what they been telling down generation after generation are really cool too. We've all heard Transylvania, the Romanian kind of stuff. And, I bet you there's some really cool stories coming out of the Ukraine that little kids here.
Yeah, there's some pretty gnarly ones out in Eastern Europe. Yeah. I would say, Japan is like all their different, I don't know if yokai, I think it is, like different monsters and ghouls and demons, like just endless. It's just a full encyclopedia. It's like, you could spend all day just being like, okay, which one do I want to draw?
And their horror movies have just like taken off these last decade or so. And they got the grunge. The first time I seen them, that made me a little unsettled.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't get scared that easily, of course, from watching it, but that one I do remember like being up at night, like checking under covers and things like that. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. The Ring is kind of creepy, and that came out of Japan, I believe.
Yeah, I worked in a haunted house for like high school, right? And I always had to play the Ring girl because I was the only one who could like fit in this weird well that they constructed. And oh man, did I scare literally some guy shit his pants one night. Yeah, it was so fun because I just took it and like went with it, as with like my little theatrical background as well. And just, it was great.
Yeah, that one will trip you out. And then there's one of Joshua Jackson played. He was a photographer in Japan, and he had I can't remember the name of the movie, but this girl, I think he kills a girl by accident somehow. And she's like on him, like physically on him. You don't see it till the end of the movie, but she's like physically on him. And he, through the whole course of the movie, he starts to get weighed down and more. And it's the whole metaphor of like her spirit is like on him.
My God. I love that.
Yeah. It's that one's another one that just kind of creeps you out because there's all sorts of weird stuff that's happening. Joshua Jackson, look him up. I don't remember. Well, I'll look up while we talk on to something else. Todd, I'm sorry. We kind of went crazy on this whole thing.
I know. Well, you're out of my realm because I do not like horror films or that genre at all.
So the movie is called Shudder, Shutter, released in 2008. Joshua Jackson.
Well, I'll probably be watching that. Okay.
There you go. Check it out. I know you'll like it. It'll be good. You'll like it.
Thank you.
You've actually done at least one mural. Have you done multiple murals?
Yeah, so I did one that is, let's see, if you're sitting in the Historians, is that what it's called? That restaurant on Broadway and First, basically. They have like a patio upstairs and a lot of people have brunch there. And so if you look out, like you can see, it's like an alleyway mural, but I got lucky. I got like a nice spot there. And so you can see it like if you're having brunch. So I did one of those. And then I have one that's in Dazzle. The jazz bar, and it's like 3x3, let's say. Yeah, those were fun. They were all volunteer based. It was fun to like try to work in a really large scale, and I haven't painted in a while, so it was definitely a challenge. I had to start, like they kept asking me to volunteer to do more murals, but I was like, at this point I need to start doing paid stuff.
Yeah,
I can't volunteer for the rest of my life, so.
And nor should you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like. At this point, I don't even really like bat an eyelash. Like, no, thank you, but no.
And then you did one down by Sweet Action. Is that right?
Oh, did I? Oh, that was the same one. So yeah, so Sweet Action is on the other side of it, I think. Right? That's the ice cream place on Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the same mural. So it's like behind Sweet Action, I think.
Okay.
But also behind the Historians.
Would you like to do that more of that work if you had the opportunity to be paid for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was really fun. I just kind of like fell back into, I think that's when I was starting to do more like pursuing editorial illustration. And so I just kind of stopped doing it, but it was really fun. I destroyed the inside of my car doing it. One of the paint cans the lid wasn't fully secure. And turns out I like completely covered the upholstery in like bright blue paint. And,
oh my God.
Didn't catch it fast enough. It was like 100 degrees out and it definitely dried and it is there forever. No. I sold the car already and told the guy about it. I was like, you can buy some upholstery panels for maybe $100 or something. I just didn't want to do it. But yeah, it really sucked. And all inside the trunk too. I think it was two full gallon cans of paint. I was like, oh man. It's like free job. And now I have to figure out how to fix this mess.
Oh man. I read where you said that you consider yourself deeply empathetic. How does that empathy, that deep empathy that you feel, how does that play into your work and the process?
Yeah, I think that's probably why a lot of my pieces are mainly figurative and usually dealing with the human condition. It's just probably there's like this fascination with how other people's minds work. How does everyone perceive their own reality? Because there's no way for me to know. But yeah, and I think coming with like it's a blessing and a curse, of course. With empathy, it's that two-sided coin where it's just this marvelous ability to read a room or see how people are feeling, and adapt and help. But at the same time, it's very overwhelming. And I think for me, like a release from that is creating very emotional pieces, very expressive. And maybe that's just me trying to alleviate that pressure build up sometimes, whether I'm aware of it or not.
I definitely can see that in your art. And I think that's why it resonates so well with not only myself, but I imagine just anybody that views it. Obviously, Wes, my wife earlier today. But yeah, so I was curious about that. That's a interesting comment. And it resonated with me because I feel like that's what I bring to the table when I'm photographing people, is that I have the ability to connect with them on a level that's maybe a little bit different than, your ordinary person. And I think, or I hope at least, that shows through with the photographs that I do. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting comment, and I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to bring that up too. That's definitely how I think that definitely ties a lot into the subject matter I'm interested in, for sure. I just love when you listen to music or see a piece of art or photography too, just when it really does make you feel something very strongly. And I always want to replicate that. I want it to, whether good, bad, happy, whatever, I just really want it that I want the feeling to almost be a focal point as well, not just the subject matter. So.
Well, and I think good art, if for people that are empathetic, and I know there's a lot of people that don't feel that deeply, I'm like, woo, I'm really deep into empathy. This piano player that I knew in college, and John Bayless, I've seen him twice, and he came and visited and played Madame Butterfly, an aria on piano. And I was moved to tears because it was so beautiful. Wow. Artwork can do that to me. Music, words, poetry. I'm a sucker for a great poem and great wordsmithing. I wouldn't change it for the world. I love to feel that deeply about things. And, and I definitely can tell that you put a lot of, empathy and soul and everything in what you do. And I think, like Todd said, that's a perfect example of why it resonates with us, is you can feel it. You can just look at it and feel it. And I love that.
Oh, thank you so much.
There's a drawing that I saw you did. It says cowboy drawing. It's a close-up portrait of a cowboy, big mustache. And I thought, oh my God, it's Lee Marvin. Is that who it is? Or
no, it was just a guy. I'm sure I referenced him, or someone similar, right?
Yeah.
When putting the drawing together, but it wasn't intended to be. It was just I did. Stereotypical cowboy.
I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, it's Lee Marvin. And it reminded me of the movie Cat Blue with Jane Fonda. And if you haven't seen that one, that's another one that'll make you laugh. He's brilliant in that movie. Anyway, a sidetrack, but yeah, awesome. I really,
I'm glad you found that.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, your stuff is just it. There's a lot of great stuff that just tugs at you. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it's diverse. That's what I like about it. You're not, you're exploring a lot of different subject matter. And I think for me as a viewer, I want to see different stuff. I don't want to see the exact same theme throughout the entire body of work. I want to see that your interests, it kind of comes through, whether it's with your paid work or your personal work. It's just interesting to see, the thought and how it has evolved too, especially, looking at your various social media feeds. Are you constantly creating? Do you draw every day?
I wish. Since COVID, I at least draw probably 5 days a week. And I would go through periods where I wouldn't touch a pencil, and like that motivation just died, and then, 3 months later, it's like I suddenly like this frenzied emotional feeling like I need to make artwork. And so I get back into it again. But only recently has it been a really consistent practice for me. I'm ashamed to say, I wish I was that person that couldn't sit down every single day and start drawing. And I'm getting there. Right now that feels natural to me. Like I want to just draw a little bit every day. But when I was traveling and just doing all kinds of different things, it's like some weeks, like I just didn't have the time or the energy.
I think it's interesting. We ask this question a lot. And most times people go, oh yeah, I'm painting every day or I'm creating every day. But then there's people like yourself, and I'm this way too. Like unless I'm inspired, I'm not going to be creating. Like I'm not pushing it. And we talked to another artist, Paul Weiner. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's the same way. He's like, no, I'm, when the bug gets me, then I'm into it and I do it. But if I'm not, then I'm not in my workshop or my studio, making a painting. Maybe I'm doing research or whatever, but I don't necessarily feel the need to be in there every day. And I think that's one of the misconceptions, is that as an artist, you have to just be constantly working, but I don't know that that's really the case. I think it's good to keep on top of your craft and keep your mind and your tools sharp. But at the same time, if you're not feeling motivated, I'm not one of those ones that would go and just paint because I feel like I need to paint. So
same. I've definitely forced myself to do that plenty of times. And sometimes it comes out, it's great. I get a good piece out of it. And other times it's just, the emotion, the feeling, nothing is there. Yeah. It's just kind of like, like you said, just kind of getting the muscle memory and keeping myself sharp. But at some point I'm just like, there's other things I could be doing than just like forcing myself to sketch, just because.
We talked about the fact that you're able to buy artwork off of your website. Do you sell a lot of work via your website?
Yeah, a decent amount. Or people will I just wanted to find an easier way for people to buy my stuff. I finally created a shop for that, with like the ability to read credit cards, things like that. It was just easier than having to deal with every single individual message from somebody saying like, well, how much is this? Where do I find this? And I was just making my life more complicated. So I set up the shop, and it's funny now. I thought people wanted to have the ability to just purchase it and not talk to me, but it seems to be like people like to peruse the shop, figure out what they want, and then they'll message me, and then they want to Venmo or something. Like they'd rather just do it through me, which I prefer. But it's just funny. I created it thinking that that's what would make people, like make it easier for everybody, but they'd rather go the other route. So.
Well, your website is great. It's one of the better ones I've been on in a while as far as navigation and finding, and
good.
I having to go click back 5 times to get back to where I started from. So I really appreciate the thought behind that. I don't know if you designed that yourself or you had somebody else do it, but whoever did it did a great job.
Say, well, it's a plug for Squarespace.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, I'll just pay for this because it's, like you said, it's like, I want it to be quick and easy. So,
well, they got it down. I'll tell you what,
they do.
It's easy to go on there. It looks like it'd be really easy to purchase a piece. And, I think that's awesome that you're able to sell work direct to your viewers. Where does your work start and what does it go up to, if I can ask that question?
I would say I only recently started selling originals because people were asking about them. So I keep them pretty affordable because they're done in a very brief amount of time. So I would say the cheapest print to make it worth my while is $30. And usually it's, like the smallest would be a 4x6. I do have originals going up to about 200. And a lot of it's just based on, how much time did I put into it? How much materials, just trying to be as fair as possible and keeping it as accessible to everybody. I know, I'm just amazed that people are willing to spend their hard-earned money even on my stuff. Like we don't really need art. And I know that's the worst thing for me to say as an artist, but it's true for people who are really struggling, especially now, for them to decide to purchase art. I try to make it, I try to help people out too. And if they reach out and like they want to purchase multiple prints, of varying sizes and styles, like I'm happy to give them a nice deal. Like I'm shipping it to one place anyways, why not like give a discounted price? So yeah, I would say so $30 to about 200 probably. And then I do a lot of private commissions, and that's, all over the place depending on how big and, what they want.
So what kind of commissions do you get?
It's been all over the place, like even just family portrait style stuff or paintings, or just do whatever you want. I just want a personalized piece. Sometimes it's for business projects too. It'll be like, I want like a specific piece for my business. So yeah, it's been all over the place, but yeah, usually just mostly for people's families and gifts and things like that.
Do you enjoy doing that?
It's really stressful. Again, being the empathetic person, I think it's hard for me to give myself a fair price, like not undersell myself. And then at the same time, worrying so much about whether they're going to like it, knowing full well, like they came to me, they like my stuff. Of course, it's going to be fine. But wanting to, it to be so perfectly good, and worrying about them feeling like they didn't get what they paid for or something. So that for me, that's always hard. And I always have to talk myself down from that. And that's like an anxious tendency, of course, but it's tough to suddenly it feels like that pressure's on, it's everything has to be just right.
Have you always been a perfectionist?
Yes.
It's a blessing and a curse, right?
It's terrible. Yeah. I get a lot of comments from, friends or whoever saying like old mentors saying, wow, your work has really excelled, in the last year, it's really developed. And I feel like it's me putting so much added pressure on myself for like new pieces to be not doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, but being like, okay, well, what can I do with this, and totally changing my process up, which is it's not smart, but it has pushed me to be a lot better, a lot more quickly. So I don't know. I hated the whole process of it, but it was worthwhile in the end, I guess.
There was some learning, right? And
yeah.
And that's just, it's more, when you have those experiences, it's just more tools in your tool chest that you can cull from when the time comes, right?
Yeah. It's never lost time for sure. But now I'm settling more into a more realistic approach and just kind of not coasting. It's always a challenge, but creating stuff that's similar, like not trying to completely reinvent the wheel every time I create a new piece.
I want to talk about one more body of work before we talk a little bit more about business. And so let's talk about this. This is very different stuff. It's not on, I don't really see it on your Instagram feed at all, but talk about this work.
Those are so old.
Is it?
Yeah, let me turn the light on real quick. Yeah, those are old.
I mean, it's fantastic. And it's so different from the other stuff that I've seen of yours. This is on, Adobe has this thing called Behance. And if you search it out, actually, I'll find this and put it up in the episode notes. But this is really intriguing work. So,
oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm like looking. I haven't seen these in so long. Yeah. So the top 3 are all part of our series that you create. It's one of the classes. I think it was like graduation portfolio, and this was at RemCAD.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like free reign. Just decide what you want to create and, make it a 3-piece series. For me, I was really interested, I still am, in psychology. Of course, the darker side of it.
I guess you got H.H. Holmes on there.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah.
But yeah, the top is specifically about like brain mapping. They had some really amazing scientific, have you seen like the fibrous brain mappings of like people? Anyway, so it was combining that with different disorders. So that was and those are all oil paintings, 18 by 24 in size. That was when I was in love with oil painting. I thought I would never stop doing oil painting. The ones below that are all serial killer portraits, and they were painted. This I got an idea or help from Hugh Alexander, one of the instructors in the illustration department at the time. And he was saying you can paint oil on silk. So I went and I bought a bunch of silk, and this is oil painted on silk. And behind it is an Illustrator file that I printed large form, and it's like patterns that I made. And they're just kind of like weird little Easter eggs. Like the patterns are like the subliminal messaging or like little bits and pieces of like their life or like their modus operandi or whatever. So it's like for H.H. Holmes, it was the maze, like in Chicago, and I had it built out of bones or whatever. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, the stethoscope. And I think I had the VW bug for Ted Bundy and things like that. So they were super dark, super fun. But yeah, it was playing around with really distorted stuff.
I love these two series, the serial killer one and not even being of, enjoying that genre. And then the whole thing with the brain mapping, I think they're brilliant. And so you don't really paint these days?
I really miss it. It's more, no, I haven't painted in a while. I have an oil painting like halfway finished that I started like 2 years ago, and I haven't touched it since. I want to get back to it. I just kind of fell down my own little rabbit hole of doing pen and ink. But I absolutely do miss really expressive painting, seeing mark making and things like that. I'm obsessed with Phil Hale's paintings. They're very dark. He's just a master. And that really propelled me into that world of wanting to be this like excellent oil painter for a while.
Well, your self-portrait, the first one, is absolutely beautiful. I love the colors. I love the colors.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that one actually was really, it came out really successful. And I think that's where my instructor at the time, Dave Collins, was like really encouraging me to keep going with oil painting. So yeah, that's what I kept doing, like classes after that. I was like, all right, I'll keep doing some oil portraiture.
I think they're brilliant. I'd love to see some more of that work. So if you do some of that and you get it up on your website, I can't wait to check it out.
Oh, thanks. It definitely would happen. I just need to get like a setup better. It's just so, I don't know how painters do it, honestly. I just am so overwhelmed with the setup and the cleaning. Like I also like to travel when I'm, drawing and stuff, like sit on the couch or whatever. So it just feels weird to just park it and have like a million things to clean up. So I'll get there.
I could see that, actually. I could see that being a little bit overwhelming.
That's when you need an assistant. Clean these brushes. Done.
Oh yeah. Maybe I'll train the cat.
There you go.
There you go.
It's going to be a nightmare in the house.
Do you sell a lot of work off your social media feeds, off Facebook and Instagram and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Mostly Facebook, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah. And that's the one I put the least amount of energy into. So go figure.
You know what? I think because the type of work that you do, and then I've looked at your Facebook posts and you go into detail about them. And I think maybe that's maybe part of it. And we heard that from another artist too. Which artist was that, Wes? Where they thought that Facebook was way more engaging. Maybe it was Matt Ciso out of DC.
That could be. Yeah, I think you're right. It may have been him. Well, and they were saying is because there's a lot more interaction with users, than with Instagram.
That's right. Because in Instagram, you don't really get that interaction that you do in Facebook.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of people that reach out to you and want to message with you about the work?
Oh, just to discuss it?
Yeah. Or just a particular piece or,
Yeah. It's weird. It almost comes in like spurts. I don't know, like just this last week, it was like you guys reached out or like 4 or 5 other people reached out either about purchasing or commissioning. And it was like suddenly it was just flooded with stuff. And then it's quiet for a while. I think a lot of people claim that too. I don't know what it is, like something in the air just blows just right. And then everyone's like on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the universe gives you what you need when you need it, right?
Ooh, yeah. I like that.
I wish the universe would spread mine out. I'm usually really busy or like dying. If it just spread it out just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little. Right. It doesn't have to be perfectly even.
Right, right. Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, are those the two main platforms that you use? Do you use any other platforms to get the word out about your work and show your work?
Yeah, I just created a TikTok one. And yeah, I've literally posted like 3, of my little time lapse videos on it just to play around. But I'm sure I'll keep going with it. But right now it's like, I already feel pretty.
What's your handle on TikTok? Is it the same as like your Facebook? Or, well, that's all right if you don't know.
It's my first name dot my last name.
Okay.
So Brooke VanDevelder.
Okay.
It's obnoxiously long.
You mentioned earlier, Brooke, about COVID being actually kind of a good thing for you because you were able to kind of step back and kind of reassess. And we've heard this from a bunch of different artists during this time. Have you been able to sell quite a bit of work this year during the whole COVID thing?
Surprisingly, yeah. And I want to just say it's probably just because I've been, committing to producing the work and posting it regularly, which I haven't really not done almost ever, I don't think. So I think I'm just on people's radar and they're like, oh, that piece, or like, I've always wanted to buy something from you, but now's the time for some reason. Like, it's probably just because I'm constantly in your feed, by putting work out there. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, there's no other distractions, whether I like it or not, there's nothing else to do. We're in like a very limited, weird, almost social experiment for ourselves. And it's like kind of interesting to see what you can make of that, I don't have to worry about all these things that I should be doing or could be doing, but I'm not. It's like, instead, like either I'm just lounging around the house or I'm getting after it and creating work, doing the stuff that I always wanted to do, but didn't have time or, got distracted by other things, life in general. So I don't know. I guess if you're a creative, I'd say, why not like seize this time and make it worth your while. So
I feel like there's going to be some phenomenal art that's going to come out of this, year and a half, 2 years, whatever it looks like at the very end where things kind of get back to normal. You're going to see like just phenomenal work. It'll be like a renaissance of sorts.
That's a really good point. I was thinking the same thing, that and probably a resurgence of a lot of small businesses. I would hope like all of these people have these ideas that they've been putting on hold and, hopefully at some point they're finally like they're out of work, unemployed and, ready to start it. And I hope it works out.
And what do you got to lose, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. And I think if you're of the mindset that you had a business started a few years ago and for whatever reason it tanked, whether it's a restaurant or whatever, it's not going to stop you. You're going to find that next idea and run with it, or maybe it changes, maybe it's the same, maybe you open up again, but I think we'll see a resurgence. This will lead. I mean, anytime there's a big dip, whether it's a market dip or whatever, when it comes back, it usually comes back pretty strong. And I think there'll be some great things coming out of it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think we all like suffered such a huge loss. Yeah. And we're now just of that mindset. What do I have to lose? I already lost it. So.
I think the other reason we're seeing so many people buying art is that, there's things that they normally would spend money on. They haven't had the ability, whether they go out to eat a lot or they go to the bar a lot. And so now it's not like they have any more cash on hand, but they're funneling it to artists. And we've heard this from, just about every person that we've talked to, I think, that they've done well, that 2020 was a great year for them. And hopefully 2021 is the same deal.
Yeah, I agree.
What kind of things do you have going on in 2021? Do you have anything in specifically that you're looking forward to? Do you show your work? Have you done any exhibits recently?
Yeah, I used to do a bunch of them specifically with Helicon Gallery and then a couple other random ones peppered throughout the year. But I mean, that gallery went out of business before COVID hit. I would like to do gallery stuff again. At the moment, I feel like I'm not really in those circles as much anymore. So even you just talking about going out to see some artwork, I'm like, man, I have not done that in so long. I need to go do that. So that would be a really good goal for me right now. This year is just talking to fellow artists again. I've just been, in my own little vacuum for way too long, getting that community back. Cause I think I was using COVID as an excuse, to really just fully shut down and just be by myself and not talk to anyone, which, as we all know, drives everyone crazy. So, I definitely would love to, I had a goal to acquire, a couple more magazine publications that I might have like a rapport with in the future. And definitely just enjoying creating maybe more folklore pieces or just generating my own personal artwork. just for fun, which I tend to forget about. Pre-COVID, I really wasn't doing a whole lot of it.
I would love to see you in a gallery setting. I would love to see your work up close and personal. I'm going to keep my ears open and see if that can happen sometime in the near future. I'm gonna send some people your way, I think.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. I would love to do that.
Where can people find you on Facebook and Instagram? Do you have that off the top of your head?
Yeah, so for Facebook, it's, as far as I know, it would just be my first and last name. So Brooke with an E, VanDevelder, VanDevelder. And then Instagram is B VanDevelder. So just the letter B and then my last name. I have a Twitter, but I don't post to it. So those are the two main ones. And then my website, which is just my last name.
And I'll make sure I have all that stuff in the episode notes as always. Brooke, one last question for you. Wes, did you have anything else before we sign off today?
This is good.
So your journey has been incredibly interesting to me. And what's nice about doing this podcast and talking to different artists is that there's no one way to do this thing that we call having an art life. And everybody does it their own way. And you've done it your own way. And I wish you success in the future and continued success in the future. What advice would you give someone that is in art school right now and looking at doing art professionally?
I would say stick with it and stay true to yourself, which is, the typical answer, but it's something that took me a really long time to finally practice for myself. And once I did, I just enjoyed making art so much more. And that to me is like the greatest achievement, because our entire life, we're just like trying to get after a goal or complete something and reach success, whatever like ambiguous word that is. But at the point, it's like at the expense of just enjoying the process of creating. So yeah, and I would say no matter what, you will find some success if you keep after the same thing long enough, and people see that you're still producing this work. Like they'll notice you, and if you put yourself out there continuously, things are going to start to connect. And it takes a while. Like a lot of people don't have the overnight viral success or whatever, but it's just like, I don't think I'd want that for myself anyways.
I agree. I'd rather be in it for the long haul than have this huge supernova career that explodes and then dissipates.
Yeah. And you're always trying to reach for that.
Right. Yeah. And there's a commercial on, I don't remember who it's for right off the top of my head, but the lady says, an overnight success takes 10 years. You got to put in your 10,000 hours or whatever, it's just time. You just pay your dues and you keep at it. You don't get discouraged. And like you said, stay authentic to yourself, and that'll pay off in dividends, and not try to, if somebody's telling you, oh, I like what you stuff, but you should do it this way. No, probably should just stick with your own, because that's what's going to ring true to you. And that'll make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Well, again, to our listeners, the website for Brooke is vandevelder.com. It will be in the episode notes with a link to go to our website and check out our work. Brooke, thank you so very much for spending time with us on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys so much for sacrificing Super Bowl for me.
Yeah.
No, we do really appreciate it. Time is the most precious thing that we have. And so taking time away from your family, your art, whatever, I just always appreciate it when people are willing to sit down for a couple hours and talk art and talk about the work that they do. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it too, because we get value from each other. By looking at your artwork and having a deeper discussion with you, you've touched my life in different ways that will manifest itself tomorrow and in the future. So I do appreciate the time that you spend with us. It was very generous, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. This is definitely something I've been lacking, with COVID. So it's honestly, I really appreciate you guys reaching out and talking as well.
Fantastic. Well, good to see you. And for the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.